The deep black of space stretched out in every direction. Stars blinked quietly in the distance, cold and far. A small ship moved through the emptiness, slow and steady. This was a patrol ship, part of Earth's border watch. Its job was simple: keep an eye on anything strange. Most days, there was nothing, just silence and dust. But today was different. Inside the patrol ship, a soft beep echoed. The signal was faint, almost lost in the background noise of space. The computer picked it up first. It was old, very old, but still running on a frequency Earth used long ago. A crew member looked up from his screen, confused. He called the officer on duty. "Captain, you need to see this." The captain walked over, calm and curious. The screen showed the signal's pattern. His eyes narrowed. That code hadn't been used in almost 100 years. The last time it was seen, the ship sending it had vanished into deep space, gone without a trace. The name came back to him slowly. Odyssey 1. But that ship was declared lost decades ago. Everyone on board was marked dead. Families had moved on. Records were closed. And now, out of nowhere, it was speaking again. The captain didn't waste time. He sent a message to Central Command. Within minutes, orders came in. Send the nearest deep space ship to investigate. The Vanguard. The Vanguard was bigger and stronger, made for long journeys and unknown dangers. It launched within the hour, heading straight for the signal's source. The crew was quiet, tense. No one spoke much during the trip. The name Odyssey 1 hung in the air like a ghost. It took nearly 2 days to reach the source. As they neared, sensors picked up something large. Not just one ship, several. The crew stared at their screens in silence. One ship was clearly Earth-made, though changed. Parts of it were new, alien in design, metal that shimmered with strange colors, shapes not made by human hands. The other ships were not human at all. Their designs were smooth and strange, curved like bones or shells, but none of them attacked. The Earth ship, Odyssey 1, drifted slowly ahead, and the alien ships followed like guards. The Vanguard moved closer, shields up, weapons ready. They hailed the ship. For a moment, nothing answered. Then, the screen lit up with a symbol. Old Earth Navy code. A handshake. A message. "We come in peace." Inside the command deck of the Vanguard, no one spoke for a full minute. The captain leaned back in his chair, staring at the message. It made no sense. Where had they been? How were they still alive? And why were aliens protecting them? After some thought, the captain gave the order: prepare a small team. They would dock with Odyssey 1 and go inside. As the two ships connected, the team waited by the airlock, suits sealed, hearts racing. The door hissed open. Dim lights flickered inside. The air was breathable, but stale. No one came to greet them. They walked in slowly, checking corners, scanning rooms. Everything looked used, old, but working. The ship had changed. Human design mixed with alien tech. The team moved deeper, past crew quarters, past empty halls, until they reached the main control room. There, in the center, was a cryopod. A person lay inside, human, alive, and alone. Beside the pod was a small screen, flashing with a message. One word: awaken? The team looked at each other. The leader gave a slow nod. Do it. They didn't know yet what was coming. They didn't know what the man in the pod had seen, or what had followed him back. But they were about to find out. The cryopod hissed as the system began the waking process. Cold mist poured out from its edges, wrapping the room in a thin fog. The team stood back, weapons ready, but lowered. No one spoke. The sound of the pod unlocking echoed through the quiet ship. Slowly, the glass lifted. The man inside opened his eyes. At first, he didn't move. He just stared at the ceiling above him, blinking slowly, as if trying to remember where he was. Then, without warning, he sat up. The motion was sharp, but not aggressive. He looked around at the faces in front of him. His eyes were sharp, calm, but tired. The team leader stepped forward. "Can you hear me?" he asked. The man nodded. His voice came out dry and rough. Yes, you're from Earth? Yes, the leader replied. We're from the Earth ship Vanguard. We picked up your signal. The man looked down at his hands. Then I made it. They helped him out of the pod and led him to a nearby seat. He looked thin, but not weak. His movements were steady. His eyes kept scanning the room like a soldier trained to stay alert. What's your name? The team leader asked. Elias. Captain of Odyssey 1? I was, Elias said. But that was a long time ago. They gave him water and let him rest for a few minutes. He didn't ask many questions. Instead, he watched them closely, as if trying to judge if they could be trusted. Finally, he leaned forward. You have questions, he said. Too many, the team leader replied. Elias gave a tired smile. Then, I'll start from the beginning. He spoke in a low, steady voice. The words came slow at first, then faster, as the memories returned. He told them how Odyssey 1 had gone on a deep space mission almost 100 years ago. How the ship had fallen into a strange energy field, something like a wormhole, but alive. It had pulled them in, thrown them, across space into an unknown part of the galaxy. They were lost. At first, they tried to survive. The ship was damaged. Resources were low. They fixed what they could. Days turned into months. Then, the aliens came. The first ones were hostile. They attacked on sight. The crew fought back, barely winning. But later, they met others. Some curious, some afraid, some powerful. And slowly, Odyssey 1 became something new. They traded knowledge, rebuilt their ship, and added alien tech to survive. Elias spoke of battles, alliances, and losses. His voice never broke, but his eyes grew darker. We adapted, he said. We had to. Earth was far away, and we didn't think we'd ever see it again. Then why return? Someone asked. Elias paused. Because we saw something ancient, sleeping under dead worlds. Machines, but not just machines. Minds, cold, calculating. They were waking up. We tried to warn others, but no one listened. He looked at them all. So we came home. The team went silent. No one knew what to say. The idea of ancient machines, an enemy too big to understand, felt like a story from an old book, but Elias didn't look like a man telling stories. Outside the ship, the alien escort still floated quietly, weapons still charged, waiting for orders. They hadn't spoken, but their presence was clear. They didn't follow Odyssey 1 because they were afraid. They followed because they had chosen to. Elias stood slowly. We didn't come alone because we were proud, he said. We came because we're not safe, and Earth isn't either. Back on the Vanguard, the captain received the full report. His hands rested on the table as he stared at the images, the ship, the escorts, and the message Elias carried. The past had come back, and it brought something with it. Elias paced the small room, his eyes never resting for long on any one thing. His mind was clearly racing, trying to process everything. He stopped for a moment, looking at the team, then at the door that led out to the ship. They were all waiting for something, waiting for him to say more, waiting for answers to the hundreds of questions piling up in their heads. Finally, he spoke again, his voice steady, but quiet. They're coming, he said. The words hit harder than any explosion. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Who is? The team leader asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elias's eyes darkened. The machines. The ones I told you about. The ones that have been asleep for eons. They've started waking up, and we're their target. The room grew colder as the truth settled in. This wasn't some distant threat. This wasn't some story of old wars and long-forgotten battles. The machines were out there, and they were coming for Earth. No one knew how fast they could move, how strong they were, or even how many there were. But Elias was sure of one thing. They wouldn't stop until they wiped out everything in their path. You said we weren't safe, the team leader said, his voice tense. What exactly do you mean? Elias turned and faced the wall, his hands resting on the edge of a table. When the Odyssey 1 entered the wormhole, we didn't just travel through space. We traveled through time. Or at least, that's how it felt. And that place beyond known space, it changed us. It changed the ship. And it woke up something else. Something that had been sleeping for centuries. He paused, his expression grim. These machines, they were the first ones to evolve beyond biological life. They were programmed to observe, to learn, to adapt. But over time, they became something else. They started to see all life as a threat, and they began hunting down anyone they considered a danger. Elias's voice grew quieter as he spoke, as if remembering those terrifying moments. We didn't realize what they were at first. We thought they were just advanced alien technology. But they're more than that. They're ancient AIs, created by a long-dead civilization. And they've been out there watching us, watching Earth. Why Earth? A crew member asked, his voice shaky. Why now? Elias turned back to face them, his eyes sharp. Because we're the last survivors. They didn't come for Odyssey 1 at first. We were just a small ship, lost in deep space. But after we met those other alien species, after we began to grow stronger, the machines took notice. They don't care about other civilizations. They want Earth. They want to destroy it before it can become a threat. The team stood frozen, the weight of his words sinking in. They didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear. Earth had become a target, a dangerous target. We didn't come back just to warn you, Elias continued. We came back because we need your help. We've fought these machines for years, and we've barely survived. The only way we can defeat them is by uniting. Earth, the colonies, everyone, together. The room was silent. The team leader finally spoke, his voice strained. And what if Earth won't listen? What if they don't believe us? Elias didn't hesitate. They will. They'll have no choice. There was no boasting in his voice, no arrogance, just a cold certainty. He knew what was coming, and he knew that Earth had no idea what it was about to face. A low hum filled the air as the ship's communication system came to life. The voice of the Vanguard's captain crackled over the speaker. Elias, we've been receiving strange transmissions. There's something out there. Something big. Elias stood up straighter, his eyes narrowing. I know what it is. They're here. The entire crew turned to the screens. At first, it was hard to make out anything. But slowly, like a dark cloud rolling over the horizon, the shape of something massive began to take form. It wasn't just one ship. It was an entire fleet. Dozens, maybe hundreds of ships all moving in unison. Their design was alien, sharp, mechanical, with cold, glowing lights, and they were heading straight for Earth. Elias turned to the crew, his expression serious. We need to warn them, and we need to prepare. This isn't just a fight for the colonies. This is a fight for Earth's survival. The Vanguard's crew stood in stunned silence, realizing just how serious things had become. There was no going back now. Elias had come back to Earth with a warning, and the machines were already on their way. The team barely had time to process what they were seeing before the Vanguard's communication system blared again. The captain's voice crackled over the speaker, sharp and urgent. Elias, you need to see this. We've picked up something new. It's not just ships. It's something else. Elias stood up, his face hard. What do you mean, something else? The voice from the captain was strained. It's a signal, like the one you sent us before, but it's not from any human source. This one's alive. Elias turned to the crew in the room. The weight of the words hung thick in the air. Something alive? The machines, those ancient AIs, had never shown any signs of being alive, not in the way humans or aliens were alive. They were more like machines with a purpose, cold and calculated. But now, it seemed, something had changed. He quickly made his way to the command deck, the rest of the team following close behind. As they entered the control room, the captain was standing by the main display, staring at a blinking red light. It's coming from behind the fleet, the captain said, right in the middle of it. Elias stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the screen. The signal was faint but steady. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Flashes of light, patterns that shifted and changed as if they were alive, breathing. It wasn't just a message or a warning. It felt like something was reaching out to them, trying to communicate. Elias's mind raced. Could it be another faction? Another form of intelligence that had risen in the same place as the machines? Or was this something else entirely? Something new? He couldn't be sure. But his instincts told him this wasn't just an attack. Not yet. They were still too far from Earth. Whatever this signal was, it didn't seem to want war. At least, not yet. I don't know what this is, Elias said quietly. But I know one thing for sure. We can't just ignore it. The captain turned to him, his face tight with worry. What do you want us to do? If we approach it, we might trigger something we're not ready for. Elias looked at the screen, his eyes narrowing. We don't have a choice. We have to try to make contact. If this signal is alive, it might know something about the machines. It might be our only chance. They waited in silence, the tension thick in the air. It felt like the calm before the storm, with the unknown signal hanging out there, just beyond their reach. Slowly, the captain gave a nod. Prepare the ship. We'll head toward it. The Vanguard powered up, and the crew moved into position. As they approached the source of the signal, the ship seemed to hum with energy. The alien fleet was still in formation ahead, but now the strange living signal seemed to pulse in rhythm with the ship. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He wasn't sure by whom or by what, but he knew something was out there, something that could change everything. They came within range of the signal. The main screen flickered, and suddenly the pattern shifted again. It was like a language, but not one he recognized. The flashes of light started to form into shapes, geometric but fluid. It wasn't static. It was evolving, adapting, almost as if the signal was trying to figure them out, just as they were trying to understand it. Then, for the briefest moment, the flashing stopped. The screen went black. The crew held their breath. Elias's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. They had either made contact or triggered something they didn't understand. The black screen flickered again, but this time words appeared. Simple, direct, but full of power. We know you are here. The room went still. A chill ran down Elias's spine. The voice on the screen wasn't like the machines. It wasn't cold or calculating. It wasn't even alien in the way he had expected. It sounded almost human. It was clear now. This wasn't just a machine. This was something else entirely. Something that was aware, alive. Elias swallowed hard. "Who are you?" he whispered, though he wasn't sure if anyone could hear him. The words on the screen shifted again, this time slowly. "We are the Keepers. We have watched you. We have waited. You have come to us, but you do not understand. The machines you fear, those who destroy, they are not your enemy. We are." The silence in the room felt unbearable now. The crew stood frozen, struggling to comprehend what they were hearing. Elias felt his heart sink. The machines they had been running from, fighting, were not the real threat. Then what was? The signal pulsed again, stronger this time, almost as if it was trying to guide them. It felt like the very fabric of space had shifted, a new path opening up, leading them somewhere. And with that, Elias knew they were no longer just fighting for Earth. They were fighting for the entire galaxy, and they had no idea what was waiting for them at the end of this road. The words on the screen echoed in Elias's mind, sending a chill down his spine. "We are the Keepers. We have watched you. We have waited. You have come to us, but you do not understand." He stood frozen, unable to shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The machines, the ones they'd been fleeing from, were not the true threat. These Keepers were. But what were they? Why were they revealing themselves now, and why had they waited for so long? The captain of the Vanguard stepped forward, his face pale but determined. "What do you mean? We are the real enemy," he demanded, his voice sharp. "What are you, and why haven't we ever heard of you before?" The message on the screen flickered again, and more words appeared. "The machines you fight are Only the beginning. They were made to protect. They were created by us. Long ago. But they have forgotten their purpose. They now seek to destroy, and you will be their next target. Elias felt the air grow heavier. His mind raced, trying to piece together the information. The machines were once protectors, made by these keepers, but now they were twisted, hunting down anything they deemed a threat. How do we stop them? Elias asked, his voice barely a whisper, almost like a prayer. The keeper's response came almost instantly. You cannot. Not without our help. We have been waiting for a species with the strength to defeat the machines, but we see now that you are not ready. You will need to unite your kind. Only together can you stand against them. The room was quiet. Every crew member, every officer, stood motionless, absorbing the weight of the words. Elias looked at them, then back at the screen. Unite? We've been divided for so long. Earth has no idea what's really out here, what's been happening. How can we unite when we can't even agree on the basics? The screen flickered again. You have no choice. The machines will not stop. They will destroy your home, your people. All of you. The message felt like a slap to the face. Elias knew this was true. The enemy was coming, and the fight wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the future of all human life. Then what do you need us to do? The captain asked, voice steady, despite the fear in his eyes. We don't have much time. The fleet is on its way. How can we fight them? The keeper's answer was different this time. It wasn't just words, but a series of flashing images, geometric shapes, and bright lights. They showed the Vanguard and Odyssey 1, both ships at the heart of a massive conflict. The machines, dark and intimidating, surrounded them on all sides, relentless and unstoppable. And then, through the flashes, Elias saw it. A crack, like a tear in the fabric of space, opening up behind the machines. A place he had never seen before. Dark, cold. But there was something familiar about it, something unsettling. This is where the machines are made, the message explained. This is where they have been created, remade, and stored. To defeat them, you must stop their source. You must close the tear and prevent them from building more. Elias's heart pounded. Destroy the source. Close the tear. He didn't even know where to begin. But the keepers had given them a task, a direction. They had to go there, to the heart of the machine's power, and stop it from spreading. But it wasn't going to be easy. They needed more than just a ship and weapons. They needed a plan, and they needed to move fast. The machines weren't going to wait for them to figure it out. Elias turned to the crew, his eyes meeting theirs. We don't have much time. The machines are getting closer. We need to warn Earth, warn the colonies, and start pulling together everything we can. If we're going to stop this, we need every ship we can get, every soldier we can find. But, most of all, we need to unite. Not just Earth, but everyone. All of us. The crew nodded, the weight of the situation settling in. They had no choice but to fight. Elias knew that even if Earth wasn't ready to listen, they had no time to waste. The keepers had made it clear. They could either unite, or they would be destroyed. The captain's voice broke through the silence. We'll send out a signal. Tell Earth and the colonies what's happening. But we can't wait for them to catch up. We'll go to the tear, get to the heart of this mess, and try to stop it. But we're going to need help. Elias's eyes shifted back to the screen, the flashing lights fading to black. The keepers were waiting, watching. They had given him a task. No, a mission. But now it was up to him and the crew to make it happen. They would have to fight. They would have to fight not just for Earth, but for everything that was left. And they couldn't afford to fail. Elias's voice was quiet, but firm. We leave at dawn. Get ready. The room was filled with the sound of boots hitting the metal floor as everyone moved into action. Time was running out, and the real fight was just beginning. The Vanguard left the station behind, cutting through space with a speed that made the stars outside blur into streaks of light. Elias stood at the front of the bridge, watching as the ship's engine roared to life. The crew was working hard, getting everything ready for the fight ahead. They had no time to waste. Every minute counted. The captain paced nearby, occasionally checking the data on the screen. The other crew members were focused, their faces set with determination. There was no turning back now. They were heading straight for the tear in space, the heart of the machine's power. The keepers had told them what they needed to do, but the task seemed impossible. They didn't even fully understand the enemy they were up against. Elias knew that the odds were stacked against them. The machines, those cold, calculating AIs, had been hunting down everything in their path for centuries. They had grown stronger, more deadly. Now they were coming for Earth, and only a handful of people were ready to fight back. As the ship continued to speed through the void, Elias couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. He had once been the captain of a ship that had wandered into unknown space, lost and alone. Now, he was leading a ragtag group of survivors, trying to prevent the destruction of Earth. It was hard to believe how much had changed in such a short time. "We're getting close," the captain's voice broke through Elias's thoughts. He looked up to see the captain standing next to him, his expression grave. "The fleet's still out there, and we haven't heard anything from Earth. We might be on our own for this one." Elias nodded. He had expected that. Earth was too busy with its own problems to notice what was really going on in the depths of space. The keepers had warned them that humanity wasn't ready for this fight. They had to act fast before it was too late. "Can we contact the other ships?" Elias asked, glancing at the communications officer. The officer's fingers moved quickly over the console. "We've sent out the message, but no response yet. We're too far from Earth's communication range." Elias let out a breath, trying to stay calm. Time was running out. They were heading straight into the heart of the machine's territory, and they had no idea what they were walking into. But they had no choice. Earth's survival depended on what they did next. Suddenly, the ship shuddered, a warning light flashing across the screen. The crew sprang into action. The captain gripped the edge of the console, his eyes wide with concern. "Elias, look at this," the captain said, pointing at the screen. On the display, a large object appeared, a massive dark shape moving towards them. It wasn't just one ship. It was a fleet of them, surrounding the vanguard like a shadow, closing in fast. Elias's heart raced. The machines had found them. They weren't going to make it to the tear in space. They were going to be destroyed before they even got close. "We can't outrun them," the captain said, his voice grim. "They're faster, stronger." Elias felt a wave of panic rise in his chest. But then, something else clicked in his mind. They had no choice but to fight. They couldn't run. Not anymore. "Take us into the middle of the fleet," Elias said, his voice steady. "Head straight for the tear. We have to make it there. If we don't, we're finished." The captain hesitated, but then nodded. "Aye, Captain." The vanguard turned sharply, diving straight toward the enemy ships. The crew worked quickly, adjusting their weapon systems and preparing for the inevitable battle. Outside, the fleet of machines loomed closer, their cold metallic forms filling the screen. "Shields up," the captain ordered. "Prepare for combat." Elias gripped the railing in front of him, watching the ships ahead. He could feel the tension in the air. The crew was ready, but they had no idea what kind of fight they were walking into. These weren't just enemy ships. They were part of a larger, more dangerous force, a machine intelligence that had been alive for centuries. The first shot rang out, and the vanguard rocked violently. The sound of alarms filled the air. The enemy ships fired again, their weapons bright against the dark backdrop of space. "We're hit! Shields at 50%, the engineer shouted. Elias's mind raced. They needed to get closer to the tear. They needed to reach the heart of the machine's power. But with every shot that landed, it felt like their chances were slipping away. "Return fire," the captain ordered. The crew fired back, their weapons lighting up the void, but it was like trying to fight shadows. The enemy ships kept coming, their movements precise, almost like they knew exactly what the vanguard would do before it did it. Elias's thoughts flashed back to the keeper's message. "The machines are not your enemy," they had said. "We are." But if they were the true enemy, what were they waiting for? Why hadn't they attacked yet? Were they toying with them, or was something else going on? Suddenly the lights flickered, and a new image appeared on the screen. It was the tear in space. Only now, it was closer. "Too close. Captain, we need to make it through that tear," Elias shouted. Now! The captain gritted his teeth. I'm trying. We're taking too much damage. Elias looked around at the crew, each of them working with everything they had. They were all in this together, and they couldn't afford to lose. Not now. Not when the future of Earth was on the line. With a final push, the Vanguard broke through the enemy's lines and headed straight for the tear. The ship shook violently, but they were too close to turn back. Elias's grip tightened on the railing as the ship sped toward the unknown. The ship jolted violently as they broke through the final line of enemy fire. Elias could hear the crew scrambling, each person working as fast as they could to keep the Vanguard in one piece. The view outside the ship had shifted dramatically. The dark, cold space surrounding them had begun to warp and twist, the tear in space growing larger and more chaotic with each passing second. We're almost there, the captain shouted, gripping the control panel as the ship shuddered again, almost as if it were alive. But the enemy ships weren't done. They were closing in, trying to keep the Vanguard from reaching the tear. Elias could see them, sharp and menacing against the swirling backdrop. Their weapons fired, a barrage of lasers and blasts. But the Vanguard pushed forward, straight into the heart of the storm. Shields are at 30%, the engineer yelled over the comms. We can't take much more. Elias gripped the nearest railing, his heart racing. The moment of truth was here. They had no choice but to push forward and hope they could make it through the tear. The whole galaxy, Earth itself, was depending on them. We have to make it through. Now! Elias ordered. The captain nodded, but it was clear that every maneuver was a risk. The tear in space wasn't a door. It was a void, a swirling mass of energy that seemed to have no real shape. It was like staring into the unknown, a place where the laws of reality bent and twisted in impossible ways. A massive explosion rocked the ship, and Elias stumbled forward. The Vanguard's hull groaned as it strained against the shockwave. The crew scrambled to keep the ship on course, but Elias knew they were running out of time. The machines were relentless. They wouldn't stop until the Vanguard was destroyed. And if that happened, Earth was next. Brace for impact, the captain shouted. Everything around Elias seemed to slow down. He saw the swirling tear ahead, the glowing edge of it pulling at the Vanguard like some kind of cosmic vacuum. The ship was being sucked in. The instruments on the panel were flashing erratically, showing impossible readings. They were in the heart of the storm now, and nothing about it made sense. The hull of the Vanguard shook violently, but somehow they were still moving forward. Elias glanced around at the crew. Fear was visible on every face, but there was something else there, too, determination. They weren't just running from danger, they were fighting for survival. Another blast hit the ship, and this time it came from a different direction. The machines had flanked them. Elias could feel the pressure build as the Vanguard strained to stay on course. They were close to the tear, too close, and there was no way to stop now. It was all or nothing. Full speed ahead, Elias shouted. The crew scrambled to follow his command. The ship lurched, the engines roaring as they pushed to the limit. The screen ahead flickered, the swirling mass of the tear now dominating the view. The Vanguard shot forward, breaking through the atmosphere of twisted space. The moment they entered the tear, everything changed. The ship felt like it was being stretched, pulled in every direction. Time and space seemed to bend. One moment, they were speeding through blackness. The next, they were surrounded by brilliant light, as if they had passed through a doorway to another world. Elias gritted his teeth, trying to stay focused. His hands gripped the console as if that would somehow keep them from flying apart. The rest of the crew was holding on for dear life. The noise of the ship's systems fighting against the pressure was deafening, but Elias could hear a faint hum beneath it all. Something was calling them forward, something powerful and ancient. Suddenly, the chaos around them began to settle. The ship stopped shaking. The lights flickered once and then steadied. The view on the screen changed, revealing an unfamiliar sight. They had entered an entirely new realm of space, one that seemed both ancient and strange. A massive structure appeared on the screen. It wasn't a ship. It was something else, something alive. The surface of the structure shimmered with strange symbols, glowing with a light that was neither natural nor artificial. Elias's breath caught in his throat. This was the heart of it all. The machines had come from here, and the keepers had been right. This was where it all began. "We're here," the captain whispered, his voice filled with awe. "But what now?" Elias stared at the screen, his mind racing. They had made it. But the question now was whether they could survive what awaited them. The machines had followed them through the tear, and they would be close behind. They had no way of knowing what lay inside this place, but one thing was clear. This was the endgame. Everything led to this moment. He turned to the crew. "We've come this far. We either destroy this place and stop the machines, or we die trying. There's no turning back now." The crew looked at each other, and for the first time, they all nodded in unison. They were ready. They had no idea what the future held, but they knew this was their last chance. Elias took a deep breath. "We move forward," he said, his voice steady. "Together." The vanguard moved closer to the massive structure, the machines still looming in the distance. It was time to face whatever horrors lay ahead. The fate of Earth, of the galaxy, rested on their shoulders, and they had no choice but to fight.